There is a particular kind of fear that lives in a mountain winter, and if you have never felt it, I am not sure I can fully explain it to you. It comes at 2 in the morning when a child's forehead is burning and the nearest hospital is 60 miles of iced mountain road away. The phone in your pocket is no use. The radio is telling you what you can already see through the window. The road is closed. You are on your own. That fear walked into Grandmother Loretta's farmhouse every winter for 40 years, 9 children, 1 coal stove, a hollow in Harlan County where the snow could lock them in for a week at a stretch, and the nearest doctor's office, when there finally was one, was not a place Loretta could have taken 9 children, even if the road was clear. The visit alone would have cost what she did not have. In 40 years of winters, not one of those children died of an illness she could have prevented. She did not have a pharmacy. She had a jar of dried elderberries on the second shelf of the root cellar, labeled in her own handwriting, sitting next to the cloves and the dried ginger root. That is what I want to show you today. My name is Ruth Combs. My family has farmed the same hollow in Harlan County, Kentucky, for 4 generations. I spent 5 years working as a licensed practical nurse in Lexington before I came back home. I know what the doctors know, and I know what my grandmother knew. The jar on that second shelf cost her less than 30 cents to fill. I have been filling the same kind of jar every October for 15 years, because in this house we do not pay for what the earth already grows. Now, I want you to understand something about where I come from before we go any further, because it matters to everything that follows. Harlan County in the 1930s and 1940s was not a place where you called in sick. You either healed or you did not, and the margin between those 2 outcomes was decided by what the woman of the house knew. When the flu moved through the watershed in the winter of 1943, it did not knock on doors first. It just arrived, hollow by hollow, moving like cold water moves, to the lowest place, the most exposed place, the place with the least protection. Loretta's household was 10 people in a 4-room house on a south-facing slope below Pine Mountain. No penicillin, no antiviral prescriptions, no urgent care with a sliding scale copay. She had what Aunt Bertie had taught her. She had what grew on the hillside, and she had the sense to start before anyone got sick, because in the hollow, you learned early that prevention is cheaper than treatment, in money and in grief. That is still true today. It is just that nobody with a profit margin is going to remind you of it. Now I want to tell you about the elderberry specifically, because this plant has a history in Appalachian medicine that runs deeper than most people know. Aunt Bertie was a Cherokee woman who lived at the edge of the watershed up near Big Creek. I never knew her real name. Nobody in our hollow did by the time I came along. She was old when Loretta was young, and she taught Loretta the way the old ones always taught, not by explaining, but by doing, and trusting you to keep up and remember. One thing Aunt Bertie showed Loretta was the elderberry tree, Sambucus nigra, the American black elderberry. It grows in every ditch, creek bank, and fence row across Appalachia, and in late August the clusters of small dark berries hang so heavy the branches bow down toward the ground like they are trying to hand themselves to you. Loretta knew every elderberry stand within a mile of the farmhouse. She would take the older children with her in August, before the birds stripped the branches, and they picked into wide baskets and carried them back up the hollow in the evening light. She dried them in flat layers on the porch in the sun for a week, turning them by hand until the moisture was gone and they were small and hard and almost black. By October, she had enough packed into glass jars to carry this family through any winter Kentucky could send. She made a syrup from them, black dark, thick, sweet from the cane sugar she stirred in at the end. She kept it in a ceramic crock on the kitchen shelf, and from October through March, every person in that house took a spoonful in the morning with their breakfast. She did not call it a remedy. She did not make ceremony of it. She set the spoon on the table the same way she set the salt. It was just what you did, because the women before her had done it, and the family had stayed well. I was 6 years old the first time I watched Loretta make it. She did not explain it. She just showed me and expected me to remember. I remembered. Now, here's the part most folks have never been told. When I came back to Harlan County in 2009 and started making Loretta's syrup again, I wanted to understand at the cellular level why it works. Because I am a nurse, and I do not ask you to trust something I cannot explain. The elderberry Sambucus nigra contains a class of compounds called anthocyanins. These are the pigments that make the berry nearly black, but they are not just color. The specific flavonoids that concentrate in elderberry, quercetin, rutin, and camphorol have been the subject of serious research for decades. A 2016 randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial published in the journal Nutrients followed 312 air travelers, a population that gets sick at measurably higher rates than people on the ground due to dry recirculated cabin air and close quarters. The group that took elderberry extract experienced colds of significantly shorter duration and notably lower severity than the placebo group. Not complete immunity, shorter illness, less suffering. That is an honest claim. I will stand behind it. A 2019 study by researchers at the University of Sydney found that elderberry extract blocked influenza viruses from attaching to and entering human cells. It does not kill the virus the way an antibiotic kills bacteria. That is not how it works, and I will come back to that. What the compounds do is interfere with the enzyme the virus uses to replicate itself. They slow it down. They give your immune system the time it needs to mount a response. Now, here is the mechanism I want you to understand, because this is the part that matters. When a virus enters your body, your immune system releases proteins called cytokines. These are the coordinators. They tell your white blood cells where to go and what to fight. Elderberry extract has been shown in laboratory studies to increase the production of specific immune signaling cytokines, including interleukin-6 and tumor necrosis factor alpha, at concentrations that stimulate immune activity. Your body already knows how to fight. The elderberry is not the soldier. It is the drummer that tells the soldiers to move faster. Now, there is one more thing I want to say here before we go on, because I said I would be honest, and I meant it. There is ongoing discussion in the research community about whether elderberry's cytokine-stimulating effect could be a concern in cases of very severe viral illness, specifically whether it might contribute in rare situations to what is called a cytokine storm, an overreaction of the immune system. The current evidence does not support this as a risk from normal dietary doses of elderberry syrup. But it is a question that serious researchers are still asking, and you deserve to know that because honest is better than impressive. Now let me show you how Loretta made it, and how I make it today, because they are nearly the same recipe, except I have a kitchen thermometer and she did not. You will need 2 cups of dried black elderberries, Sambucus nigra, not red elderberries, not unripe green clusters, fully ripe dried black berries. You can order them from a reputable herb supplier, or better, you can learn to spot the plant in your county and pick them yourself in August. 3½ cups of cold water, 1 cinnamon stick, 5 whole cloves, 1 tablespoon of fresh ginger, sliced thin. Loretta used dried ginger root from Aunt Bertie's stores. The principle is the same: 1 cup of raw honey, added at the very end after the heat is off, because anything above 95 degrees destroys the enzymes in raw honey that you are paying for. Put the elderberries, water, and dry spices into a pot over medium heat. Bring it to a low boil, then drop it to a simmer. Hold it there for 45 minutes, uncovered, until the liquid has reduced by roughly half. You will know it is ready because the kitchen will smell like winter. dark fruit and clove, and something warm underneath that you cannot quite name, but will recognize the second time. Pull the pot off the heat. Let it cool until it is warm but not hot. You want to be comfortable holding your palm just above the steam without pulling away. Mash the berries against the side of the pot with the back of a spoon. Pour the whole thing through a fine mesh strainer or 2 layers of cheesecloth into a glass bowl, pressing the pulp firmly to get every drop out. Stir in the raw honey while the liquid is still warm enough to let it dissolve through. Stir slow and steady until it is fully incorporated and the mixture turns smooth and dark as molasses. Pour it into glass jars. Label them with the date. Loretta used a china marker on the glass. I use a strip of masking tape and a permanent marker. The result is the same. You will know what it is and when you made it. Refrigerated, this syrup holds for 2 to 3 months. If you want to extend that, add a tablespoon of brandy as a preservative before you seal the jar. That is what Loretta did, though she called it something to keep it honest. For adults, 1 tablespoon every morning for prevention from October through March. If illness has already started, 1 tablespoon every 3 to 4 hours through the acute phase. For children over 1 year of age, 1 teaspoon daily. No honey-based syrup for children under 12 months. The risk of botulism from raw honey is real, and Loretta knew this before any pediatrician put it on a warning label. Give a honey-free version to the youngest, or wait until they are a year old. Now let me tell you what a winter looks like in this house when you have done this right, because I want you to understand that this is not just a recipe, it is a rhythm. In September, the elderberries are drying on my back porch in flat baskets, the same way Loretta dried them, and the smell coming off them is faint and slightly earthy. Not sweet yet. That comes later, in the pot. In October, I make the first batch, 2 jars labeled, sitting in the refrigerator door. My children have been taking a teaspoon with breakfast since the youngest was 2 years old. My husband Daniel used to watch me do all this the way a man watches something he does not fully understand, but has decided not to argue with. He does not make that face anymore. He gets sick less than any man I know in this county, and he knows the reason, and he is not confused about it. By November, there is a second batch in the making. By December, there are jars of this syrup in my sister's refrigerator and in my neighbor Pauline's kitchen, 2 hollows over, because knowledge that sits in one house is only half as useful as it could be. Loretta understood that. She kept the whole hollow running from her root cellar. She gave the syrup away. She taught anyone who wanted to learn, because in the old way of thinking, your neighbor's health is your health. There is no clean wall between what she catches in January and what comes to your door in February. You stay well together or you fall sick together, and Loretta was not willing to leave that to chance. Now let me be honest about what this will not do, because I will not let you walk away from this with false hope, and I will not waste your time with anything I cannot back up. Elderberry syrup is not an antibiotic. It does not treat bacterial infections. Strep throat, bacterial pneumonia, a urinary tract infection, those require a physician and a prescription, and if your child or your husband or your elderly mother is showing signs of a bacterial illness, you call a doctor. I am a nurse. I have seen what happens when people wait on that call. Do not wait. This syrup is also not a cure for influenza once it has taken full hold. A prescription antiviral like oseltamivir, taken within the first 48 hours of symptom onset, will do something different than elderberry in an advanced case. Know the difference. Use the right tool for what the situation actually is. This is a preparation tool. It is a slow, quiet, faithful tool. You take it from October through March so that when the virus meets your immune system is already awake and ready. It is the thing you do in advance, not the thing you reach for after 3 days in bed. And let me say this plainly. If a fever runs above 103 degrees in a child, or above 101 in an infant, or if any fever in anyone in your house lasts longer than 3 days without breaking, you call a doctor. That was true in Loretta's time, and it is true now. I am not asking you to choose between the root cellar and the clinic. I am asking you to know what each one is for. For heart or illness, you want a doctor alongside this. They work fine together. I am not asking you to choose one or the other. I am asking you to know what each one does. Now let me say a true word about this before we close. The global market for cold and flu remedies was valued at $42 billion in 2023. $42 billion. For products that treat symptoms, they suppress the cough, reduce the fever, dry up the congestion, while the virus itself runs its course regardless of what you swallowed. A full course of oseltamivir, the most commonly prescribed antiviral for influenza in the United States, runs between $150 and $200 without insurance. It must be taken within 48 hours of symptom onset to be effective, which means recognizing the symptoms, reaching a provider, getting the prescription filled, and starting the medication, all within that window. If you miss it, the drug gives you very little. A quart of elderberry syrup made in your kitchen costs less than $10 in materials. It takes less than an hour, start to finish. It has been in continuous documented use in Appalachian, Cherokee, and European folk medicine for centuries, and it does not require insurance, a provider visit, or a car that starts in a January ice storm. There is no commercial for elderberry syrup because nobody can build an advertising budget around something you make from 3 things on a low shelf. No sales commission, no repeat prescription, no brand loyalty to cultivate. Nobody hid this from you. I want to be clear about that. I am not going to stand here and accuse anyone of a conspiracy. What happened is simpler than that, and in some ways harder to be angry about. They just stayed quiet. And quiet does not buy a primetime spot on the evening news. Quiet does not pay a detail representative to visit your doctor's office with samples. Quiet does not run a half-page advertisement in the magazine on the waiting room table. So an entire generation grew up never being told what Loretta knew in 1943. That is not a conspiracy. It is just how the money flows. My grandmother did not know that. She did not care. She only knew that the holler provided, and that a woman who could keep her family well from what grew on the hillside did not need to ask permission from anyone to do it. There is something I want to say before I give you the steps, and it is not about elderberries. I have been a nurse, and I have seen what it costs a family when the knowledge is gone. When the grandmother who knew how to treat a winter fever has died, and nobody thought to write it down, and now the family drives 2 hours to a clinic and sits for 3 hours in a waiting room and pays what they cannot afford for something that a jar on a shelf could have handled. That happens in Harlan County. That happens all over this country. What Loretta gave this hollow was not just medicine. It was the knowledge that you do not have to wait for someone with a degree and a prescription pad to come save you, that the earth provides, that the women who paid attention, who really paid attention across generations and wrote it down and showed their children with their own hands, built something worth more than any pharmacy license. Self-reliance is not stubbornness. It is not nostalgia for a harder time. It is the dignity of knowing that when February comes and the roads wash out and the power fails and your child wakes up burning at 2 a.m, you have already done the thing that needed doing. In October, with your own hands, with something that cost you $8 in an afternoon on a Saturday in the fall. Loretta never saw the inside of a hospital. She died in her own bed at 84, with all 9 of her children around her. She was not lucky. She was prepared. So here is what I want you to do. 1. Find out if elderberry grows near you. Sambucus nigra grows along creek banks, fence rows, and the edges of wooded land across most of the eastern United States. If you live anywhere in or near Appalachia, it is almost certainly within a mile of where you are sitting right now. Learn to identify it before the berries come in. The flowers bloom in flat white clusters in late spring and will show you exactly where the berries will be in August. 2. Order or pick enough to make a single batch this weekend. 2 cups of dried berries is all you need to start. Make the syrup exactly as I showed you. It will take you less than an hour and it will cost you less than $10. 3. Label it with the date and your name the way Loretta labeled hers. Put it in the refrigerator door. Take a tablespoon tomorrow morning. Every morning, October through March. 4. Write the recipe on a card and put it somewhere it will not be thrown away. In your recipe box, in the front of a notebook, on the inside cover of the Bible on your nightstand. Write it down so it does not disappear when you do. 5. If you have children or grandchildren old enough to walk a creek bank, take them with you in August to pick the berries. Tell them the name of the plant. Tell them who taught you. Tell them who taught the person who taught you. Because that is how knowledge survives, not in a video, not in a jar on a shelf, but in a child's hands in August, learning the name of what grows on the hillside. Until then, make 1 batch this weekend. Label it with the date and your name. Set it in the refrigerator door. Tell me in the comments, what did your family use when there was no doctor to call? Write it down here so it does not disappear. Because the women who kept this country alive through hard winters and harder years knew things we are only just beginning to remember. Don't let it die with a generation.